Go. What's going on, people? It's your boy, Stay Connected, people. You guys wanted me to react to this one, people, where you see Marquett and no fugazee, cooley, diving on this topic where MyronGaines is there. I remember seeing a part of this conversation. I've seen a part of this conversation before, but yeah. The title is called "I Care About Freedom of Speech," Piers Morgan versus Races. And yeah, people, you're basically getting Marquett and cooley insight on what this whole conversation about racism and people in general. But people, let's see what this conversation is about itself. Let's get into this one right about now. Let's go, people, man. Let's turn up the volume. Let's go.
Everybody is racist to some degree. The reality is it depends on a lot.
Yeah, and that's, and that's true. I think everyone has a bit of prejudgment. Like, I think a lot of people have like a lot of in them. You know what I mean? You might not know it or not know it on what you're saying sometimes, but we all have that prejudgment or someone, or we might see a funny joke that could be deemed as racism or maybe affect another race of different ethnicity, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. So that is true. I think that is a very true statement that MyronGaines is saying right there, and that's actually true. We all have that type of thing in us. You might know now, or you might say, you know what, 5 years ago, what I said right there, that was a bit, a bit racist. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody is racist to some degree. The reality is it depends on a lot of people want to be politically correct. A lot of people want to sit there and say, I'm not racist at all. We all have biases. We all have stereotypes. We all make jokes. We all are racist to some degree. Now, how racist you are is a whole other situation, but everyone is racist. That's number one. Next thing I want to say, see,
that is very true. I agree with that point and so what Myron was saying. That is true. It's where you take it, where the conversation goes, where it leads to. How far do you go with your joke or just saying things in general that might offend someone or not offend someone, or you might say to yourself in years to come, what I said there was a bit, I can see someone else's point of view. You know what? Not now. I might take that back and be like, "Yo, that was racist."
I think this Shiloh Hendricks.
I agree with that part. What Myron said.
How
he's saying, everyone has a little bit of races in them, stereotypes. They have some biases and stuff like that. That part is true. But that's much different than how she's been explaining and expounding on her points during this interview. She pretty much confirmed that her racist is different than the type of racist that Myron is talking about. Her racist is, no, I am racist. I insult black people. She never said nothing differently. I use the N-word. This is what I do. So I think that Myron, what he's saying is facts right here, but it's general facts. Let's continue on.
And Metcalf situation is a microcosm of a much bigger problem. And that bigger problem is what I call systemic organizing. And what I mean by this is for decades, we've had black people literally running around with black supremacy, committing crimes, not getting accountability for their actions, and then they blame the system for it. For example, George Floyd, criminal. Ferguson, criminals. Freddie Gray, criminal. A lot of these people are criminals, and what ends up happening is they challenge the police officer, they get into a physical altercation, things go left, they die, something happens, use of force is utilized, and then they want to cry about the result, when in reality, it's not the police killing black people, it's black people killing black people. And if you want to talk about black on white violence, black people kill white people 2 times as much. And on top of that, most of the shootings in America, a lot of the times, are white cops killing other unarmed white men. So this whole systemic racism or police brutality, or, oh, it's all so messed up, the reality is this. Black people have been able to get away with a ridiculous amount of privilege in America for a very long time. They're able to be racist with impunity. They're able to call white people crackers without being challenged back. And quite
I'm not gonna lie. It's true. If a white person say that about black person, you're racist. But if a black person says to a white person, you're this and that, you're a cracker, it's a bit different. It's true. I get certain points or why Myron may be thinking in this way, and I can see it that way as well, because I've been racially profiled as well, and I've been racially abused from white people who have called me the N-word and all sorts like that, from like a white area, white hood, white community and stuff like that, in different areas of part of London and all sorts like that, you know, where predominantly that's like a white neighborhood, that's a white area, you know what I mean? I've been through racism, but then like as I was growing up as well, there's also a lot of, from both sides, both communities, black, whites, and Asian, brown people, being racist to other black people, Asian people being racist to white people, Asian people being racist to black people, and Asians just being racist in general. I think everyone's got like a little community that has that sort of like, I don't want you to date this race, I don't want you to date this person because of that religion. It's kind of how society is right now, isn't it? And stuff like that. I get his point. I think that's what he's juggling it to as well also.
Okay, so the thing on this, he says black people
Why people can be prejudice as well.
have gotten away with a lot of privilege, but the privilege he's explaining is, I mean, it's not really privilege. It's like, okay, I can say this, but it's not really privilege. You would say that it's an effect of what the white man has done. Because I always like to say, like, if we're going to speak about, because I see the claims that he's making right now, he's saying that, well, white people are behaving this way and saying these things, and this uproar that white people are doing, this is an effect because black people have been BLM riots. They can call a white person a cracker, which I'm against all of that too, but black people has been doing this. But then let's peel the layer back even further. Well, why are black people doing this? Well, black people are doing it now, and the BLM riots and all of this is because of the racism in America. What's your take on that, Marquett?
Myron's my good friend. However, everything he said was nonsensical. He hasn't made one good point so far, and he'll still be my good friend even though we disagree. So number one, when he states that everyone's racist, this is not a fact, but he's able to.
I think it is a fact, because I'm sure you will make a joke. You might not find it funny. You might not find it rude in the moment, but that can be someone else can take that as you being racist. Know what I mean? That there's a line in each bar that you take it to. Some can go higher, some can go lower, some can go in the middle, some can just be plain racism each way. Black people send it to white people send it to black people, and all sorts.
Suggest that it is, and no one challenged that idea. That's false. I would go out and say I'm not racist at all. For example, and a lot of people, they look at.
Yeah, but you might not be, but there's people who are racist, white or black or whatever.
Myron, and because they're provincial and inexperienced and not sophisticated or well-traveled, they look at Myron and they say, oh, he's black. No, Myron's not black. To me, he looks just like a dark Arab. And the reason he looks like a dark Arab is because I've traveled extensively.
But he's from Sudan, though. He's African descent. I don't get that part. You're black either way. If you're Caribbean or got African descent and all sorts like that. I don't know. Maybe this is just like a nuance people when people have these conversations, isn't it? But if your dad is black, or your mum's black, but say if you got like a white mum but your dad's black, or you got a black mum but your dad's white, you're still gonna come out as my skin tone, or maybe darker than me. You're still black at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Or your dad can be black or light skin like me, or dark light skin like me, but your mum's black even so. You know what I mean? It could happen, because I've seen a lot of black people like have a black mum and a black dad, but they come light as hell sometimes, and you be like, what? Are you sure that's your mum or your dad?
Particularly in the Middle East and Eastern Africa and Southern Africa, and I've seen his face before many times. And so you look at his features, they're not the features of a sub-Saharan African, even though he is dark. You find dark skin in various places, whether you're talking about in India or you're talking about in Australia. We're talking about the Aborigines, the real Australians. So Myron may be dark, but he's not a black person in the sense of he's not an African American, or he's not really properly an African. He looks just like an Arab to me. He is an Arab, and he's just a dark Arab. So when people get angry that he's not so sympathetic to black issues.
No, he's Arab because he's Muslim. He's from the Middle East. Yes, he's from the Middle East, but it's still part of Africa. Know what I mean? Know what I mean? He's with the people like the Moroccans, the Algerians. He's with all those sort of people. Cameroon. He's with all the Ghanaians. Know what I mean? He's all with all those sort of people. There's so many African places, so many amazing African places. He's African. He's black. I don't get that. How are you qualified to tell people they're not black? Or how can you tell someone's not black? Like, these sort of stupid things like this are stupid. I hate when these conversations like this is like this, people. It's just it's dumb.
Well, it's like that's not what he identifies with. I believe his parents' mother tongue was probably Arabic, and in as much as that's the case, I get it. However, I would venture to say this, with all respect for my good friend, that he shouldn't even be a part of this conversation. Piers Morgan shouldn't be in the conversation. He's not even an American. He's a goddamn Britisher, and he's therefore removed from this. Myron, he just got here yesterday, as did his parents. They're not a part of this conversation. The history of America and the racial...
Basically, he's not descendant. These conversations are so cringy, people. I'll be honest with you, cringy as hell. So cringy.
Politics, it's black and it's white. This is not to disrespect any other group. And if there wasn't two other groups that would be involved, it'd be the Native Americans, because they were here before all of us and largely got eradicated. They still exist in casinos and in reservations. Shout out to them. So they can be a part of the conversation. And then you'd have Latinos a part of the conversation. But frankly, American racial political history is black and white. There's not much in between. It was always a conversation between these two opposing groups, and they're not really opposing, except that the whites wanted to, oppose the blacks. And it's not every bit of the white structure. It was primarily the property class. And then the other ones just had racism, like petty racism. The property class, they owned black people in a literal sense. But I say all that to say, number one, Myron is irrelevant. He shouldn't be speaking on these issues. These are not his issues at all. Similarly, they're not Piers Morgan's issues, but specifically with regards to Myron's arguments, they're atrocious. Saying everyone is racist, this is not a fact. Saying most people are racist, that makes sense. And then thirdly, he basically conflates a lot of things. And as a result, you can't track the arguments because he's blurring together too many things. In fact, I'd encourage you to rewind back and we can take it sentence by sentence and deconstruct the arguments.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Gaines, because you've been smirking and laughing. What's funny about any of this?
Well, I mean, I find it interesting that
I'll skip ahead this part.
No. Let's
Leave it right there.
Really
Okay, let's go right there.
Let
I'm
me
not
finish my
wagging a
point.
finger at anybody.
She
I don't need to
self-identified as a racist. She
But
said, "I
Myron,
am a
with
racist."
respect, Myron, I don't need to
Because-
wag a finger when
And Marquett, let me know when you want to stop it.
Okay.
somebody says, yeah, I'm racist. I use the N-word against black people. I don't care. That's a racist. I'm
everyone
not
isn't
wagging
really-
any finger. I'm not accusing anybody. She is admitting it proudly. Even
Here's the
you
thing.
can't defend that, surely.
Everybody is racist to some degree. The reality is,
Piers Morgan's argument. She said the N-word with the hard R, which was clearly a hateful thing. She was saying it to be malicious against the black American. That is hate. Then Myron basically engages in a subtle red herring, very slick. He says everyone is racist, which what he's talking about is a mitigating idea, which suggests that, well, all of us have our own biases, yes, but that's a
We do though. That's the problem. That's what Myron's trying to say. We have, like, that is the problem.
lot different than me going around calling people wet, BACKS, or calling people ching chong, and using all these malicious, hateful terms. If I, for example, have some inherent bias or some instinct to discriminate merely because people are unfamiliar or different, or I'm ignorant of them, or maybe I've seen a lot of stereotypes, that's a lot different than being willfully malicious. So Piers is talking about racism that is willfully malicious, whereas Myron tries to change the topic to racism that is kind of inherent and thoughtless. So, and I can obliterate these one by one. Carrying on.
it depends on, a lot of people want to be politically correct. A lot of people want to sit there and say, I'm not racist at all. We all have biases. We all have stereotypes. We all make jokes. We all are racist to some degree. Now, how racist you are is a whole other situation, but everyone is racist. That's number one. Next thing I want to say, see, I think this Shiloh, Hendricks, and Metcalf situation is a microcosm of a much bigger problem. And that
This is another thing that clearly shows that we're dealing with racism, because these two situations are very unrelated, very unrelated. Shiloh is a white woman who's in a situation that is clearly racial because she's screaming the N-word at a child, no less, a child with special needs. It's clearly a racial situation.
Oh yeah. I remember this situation.
The Austin Metcalf situation could be a racialized situation by the onlookers, because truth be told, that could have easily been a situation where Carmelo Anthony was sitting under someone's track tent. A black kid could have walked up to him like, hey, bro, you ain't even a part of this school. You're not supposed to be under this umbrella, bro. Go over there. And then Carmelo Anthony could have hunkered down and said, no, make me. And then the dude put his hands on him. Black guy put his hands on Carmelo. Carmelo pulled out that thing, hawked him. Now he's dead. There was no overt racial reality to that. It was made racial by the onlookers. So these two phenomena are not even congruous. The only reason that whites bring that up is as an excuse, is a rallying cry to circle around this white kid who is a victim and thereby aggress toward blacks. That's all that was. And
the
notice,
bigger problem is what I call systemic organization.
I just want for those who are watching, each one of these arguments are being obliterated and it's effortless. I don't even have to think, to be honest with you. I could play piano right now while saying this. It's that easy. Go ahead.
Hey, man, you spitting.
And what I mean by this is, for decades, we've had black people literally running around with black supremacy.
He said for decades we've had black people running around with black supremacy. Fascinating. I'd go ahead and say, if I was Piers Morgan, which I'm not, because I'm not gonna get into it, but if I was Piers Morgan, I would say for decades, well, Myron, how many decades have we had black people running around with black supremacy? How many decades is that, Myron? Was it in the 1800s? Was it during enslavement? No. Okay. Was it during Reconstruction? Was it right after the Civil War? No. Was it during Jim Crow when they were not getting their enfranchisement? No. Okay. Was it when the 1950s and 1960s when they were marching and trying to get the right to vote? No. Okay. Was it the 1970s when they still weren't getting their due? Was it the 1980s when they had to radicalize because they weren't getting their due? When did black people become black supremacists? Was it in the 90s when they started perming their hair out to imitate the white people that most of them look up to very much? When did the black supremacy start to exist? Name me 3 black supremacist organizations with significant membership. You couldn't. In fact, I could get a Lil Wayne concert and that would have more attendees than any black supremacist organization you could name. For example, if you talk about the Nation of Islam, this organization nearly has no members. That's why they partnered up with the Church of Scientology, which is a white organization. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, once the FBI went in and murdered people, literally, illegally, unethically, the new Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, they can't even get members. So what are you talking about? This is not truth. There's no evidence of it. It's truly speculative.
I do get maybe Piers Morgan should have questioned Myron about certain things and why he thinks that way, or what made him think this way. So I agree with Marquett. Yeah, I do agree with him on that. He should have asked Myron why do you think this way. So I do agree with him on that sense.
Committing crimes, not getting accountability for their actions, and then they blame the system for it. For example,
he stated black people are committing crimes and not having accountability for their actions. This is the most ludicrous thing on earth. See, I would challenge him with the statistics. Number one, half of the prison population is black male. So it's about 48, 49%, right? The black population in America is about 12%, and I would venture to say much less if we actually had a true accounting of who's in the country. With that being the case, we are disproportionately represented in the penal system. So clearly they're experiencing accountability. Furthermore, not only are they experiencing accountability, they're experiencing more than accountability. There's a scholar named Dr. Renford Reese, whom I know personally. He wrote a book called The Prison Race. You can find a lot of the knowledge I speak to, which is all fact-based. You go to amazon.com/shop/the Saint and the Sinner spelled out. It's a lot of literature there.
I think what Myron's trying to lead to, I think he's trying to, he in his question, he's trying to say this is the reason why a lot of black people are in prison. I think that's where he's coming from, people. I think he actually knows why they're in prison. Because they commit crimes. I think that's what he's trying to say, or what he's trying to lead to. That's what mine, I think, is trying to lead to. The problem is there's too many in the system that is for the system, and why they're in the system, or why most of them are committing crimes. Because that's what led them to going in prison. I think that's what Myron's trying to say. But I get Saint's point in certain things though.
But anyways, Dr. Renford Reese wrote a book called Prison Race. When you hold consistent prior crime, current crime, and then you look at jail time, you find that blacks are getting more jail time than whites on average. It's very clear. It's very much so statistically significant. So they are being held accountable. In fact, they're being abused in the criminal injustice system.
I think that can be, I think that is a point. Because people get less sentenced than others. I do believe that.
The United Snakes of America. And I say this as a patriot, but to be a patriot means that I identify with the people of America, who are the greatest people on the planet Earth, including with our significant racist population. But our government is filthy. And what he's speaking of right now is completely devoid of facts.
Yeah, the system does mess you up, but you make yourself the system. If you make yourself the statistic to go in the system. I think that's what Myron's trying to say. But I get both points. Both points are making very valid points.
George Floyd, criminal. Ferguson, criminals. Freddie Gray, criminal.
Pause.
A lot of these people are criminals.
This is the first time he says something meaningful in this conversation, and it's
I mean, they did have backgrounds of criminals though, so he's not lying.
Meaningful because Black people do circle around the wrong person. We support the degenerate in our community. We support as he said, I don't even know these people's name because I don't even care who they are, but Freddie Gray, I remember because I used to teach in Baltimore, Maryland. And unlike the multitude on the internet who talk about Black issues, I actually was a teacher teaching black kids in some of the worst, most dangerous schools in America. I've actually put in the work because I care beyond just babbling my fucking gums. Damn, I didn't mean to curse. Excuse me. I got to be like Cooley. But you heard me. But you know, the Freddie Gray, the Mike whoever, and the other guy who was, I forget or George Floyd. Yeah, we circle around the wrong persons, but it goes beyond that. Charleston White.
Yeah, but I think it's a choice that who you hang around. Because if you hang around the bad people, that's what's going to lead you into situations like this and make you go to prison. I think that's what the whole point of this conversation is.
Who told you guys that he was a person to listen to? He's a rat and a snitch and a criminal. You circle around the Sexy Reds and all of these characters. Black people need to circle around the best of us, the best among us, not the degenerates. So this I agree on, even though he didn't explicitly state that. So my good friend Myron, I think, has a meaningful point here.
Let's continue on.
And what ends up happening is they challenge the police officer, they get into a physical altercation, things go left, they die, something happens, use of force is utilized, and then they want to cry about the result. When in reality, it's not the police killing black people, it's black people killing black people. And if you want to talk about...
I think that's so true. In our community, we are actually killing each other because of the music, the culture, our cultures in black music and black culture. We tend to don't like each other, and that is, I think, the point that he's making. There's a lot of points and factors why we end up taking each other's lives. I think that's the point that he's making.
Black on white violence, black people kill white.
So this is another dichotomy. It's a false dichotomy. And again, I can destroy these people's arguments for years on end. I could talk infinitely. Just, it's ridiculous. He says, you black people being killed by the police. No, it's black people being killed by black people. This is a false dichotomy.
No, that's what he said. That's what he's alluding to. Right, there's a big problem in the black community, and it is true. We do it, whether you want to admit it or not. It is true.
Reason that the population is more angered by the police killing black people is because, unlike your peers, other civilians, be them black or white, we don't expect other civilians to be those who are providing our safety, providing for protection of.
But yeah, there is instances where the police does kill, a black person. You know what I'm saying? It's out there, you know what I mean, on the internet as well.
Property, those who we have made public servants and funded through our tax dollar, not only today, but over generations. So if another black person commits a violent crime against you, it is a terrible thing, and we should look into that. I agree. However, you cannot compare this to the police committing what are essentially crimes against black people when they're violent toward blacks or they murder blacks, because those are the people.
Yeah, but we end up doing it to each other. The word is self-deletion, or else I can't say. We end up deleting each other. That's the point. So you're making the exact same point that he's making.
People that we're paying our tax dollar to, those are the people whose actual job it is to protect and serve, not to be aggressive, violent, and dominate. And I will also further say that it's become so despicable in this police state that the police they pretty much grimy to everybody. They're grimy to other police officers that they might encounter off duty. They're grimy to white folks. It's really despicable because the government has gotten too big and they've lost their original charge, which they were charged with serving the taxpayers.
I agree with that.
People 2 times as much. And on top of that, most of the shootings in America, a lot of the times, are white cops killing other unarmed white men. So this whole systemic racism or police brutality or, it's all so messed up. The reality is this. Black people have been able to get away with a ridiculous amount of privilege in America for a very long time. They're able to be racist with impunity. They're able to call white people crackers.
So when he says they're able to get away with a lot of privilege, I'll say, what do you mean by privilege? Are you talking about the fact that 49% of the prison population is black? Is that the privilege you're talking about? Are you talking about the fact that blacks have the lowest levels of educational attainment? Is that what you're speaking of? What are you talking about? So if we want to categorize it racially, if we looked at it racially in terms of DEI or even affirmative action, we see that the white female is the beneficiary. White So if we're looking at it racially, then we would still have to reassign the privilege to whites. But I really don't speak in terms of privilege, because if your ancestors created that privilege for you, hey, that's what they earned for you. And it is what it is. But what he's doing is he's absolutely lying, and Piers is not challenging him to give any evidence. And that's why Piers is a particularly slimy character, because you allow Myron to go on and on with fallacious arguments. They're specious arguments. It sounds like he's correct because it's almost right, but it's completely wrong, actually.
Without being challenged back. And quite frankly, white America's had enough of it, and the chickens have come to roost. Awesome. Now, look, am I saying...
Now, how crazy it is he says white America has had enough of it. You're an Arab. You're an Arab. Well, what do you mean? Are you white? Like, why do you care? And that's what I would have asked as Piers. I said, hey, Myron, I just can't help but notice everyone on the panel is either black or white. So we're kind of directly in this thing. Why do you care? Like your parents, their mother tongue was Arabic, not Swahili. Why do you care? Like what dog do you have in the race? A lot of these black folks, their family's been here for 400 years. Why do you care so much? And in answering that question honestly,
I get that point. He should have questioned Myron. Why does he think like that? Like I said, in so many other points, I think Piers Morgan should have questioned him. Why that thought process? I do get that though. So I give him my credit that he's not challenging more on his point of view.
It just removes him from the conversation, because he doesn't need to care. He's just a commentator, just like a Ben Shapiro or anybody else. They're just commentators.
It's true.
And when Ben Shapiro is speaking about things that don't involve Zionism, then really he's getting outside of his he's just making content. And frankly, this has nothing to do with Myron, and certainly he shouldn't be speaking on behalf of white people, talking about they're fed up. Because truth be told, I don't think that's the case. I, as Myron does, I'm sure, have a ton of white friends. I almost never hear them say, I'm fed up with the way black people are acting. No, it's that he's around folks that are radical.
Yeah, but maybe we don't know that. We're just guessing. People might not say that to our faces. Deep down, there's a few people who would not say it to your face, but behind your back, conversations are being made. So I disagree with that, what you just said. There's some low-key ones.
And racists, and they have a lot to say.
And everyone in the chat right now, I see you guys, a few of you, I'm reading the regular chat. You're like, yo, just let the video play. We already let this portion of the video play. Myron went ahead and spoke, but Marquett is doing a systematic breakdown of each point that is said. So that's what we're doing right now. It's called an internal critique. But okay, let's continue on.
That's awesome. Am I saying that's great? No, but for literally the better part of almost 2 decades since the Obama era, we've had to have BLM and liberalism shoved down our throats, and quite frankly, we're all tired of it.
Pause.
Right, but just to be...
So when he speaks of BLM and liberalism is not something that was created by blacks. In fact, one of my major criticisms of black people in America, and in fact around the world, is that they don't seem to be the biggest thinkers. They've not created any ideology or systems of thought. So liberalism is something that comes from whites, and as it's practiced today and spread throughout the earth, it is something that comes from whites. And where do whites program black people with this idea? They do it in public schools. Teach for America is one major organization that has infiltrated public schools, and they teach this stuff to blacks and Latinos in poverty. And they also reprogram you at the university level, and of course in between. And then Netflix and other instruments they have. So when he's talking about liberalism, again, he's stepping away from blacks, and he's actually talking about what whites are doing. And the truth is, when you're in a majority white system, political system, which is a majority rules system, a democracy, and in this case it's more rightly described as a republic, then anything that happens can only happen with the consent of white people. So when he's making a suggestion that blacks are some organized villainous group that's highly effective and methodical, this is utterly ludicrous. Black people can scarcely figure out how to keep their families together. They're not creating any mastermind plots to marginalize the whites. That's a different group of people that are going to remain unnamed.
Now, and my argument to respond to that is this: political correctness, liberalism.
You definitely know who he's talking about.
And making sure that we are politically correct and don't use certain words could offend people is precisely why we're in the situation that we're in. For decades, we've had to literally tiptoe around saying certain things around certain people, while the other group of people has been able to have impunity and be able to be as racist as they want to be, as violent as they want to be, without any type of consequence. And if you call it out, you're labeled a racist. The reality is that
the level of stupidity of this, I'm not saying Myron is stupid. We all know better than that. He's an intelligent guy, but he clearly has some emotional and psychological things that put him, that make him argue for a certain position, and maybe even financial reasons too. And I say that, with full love and respect for him as an individual. But what he said was just so ludicrous. It was patently ludicrous in as much as he said, certain groups have been able to complain and then act out racism and then get privileges. I'm like, yeah, that would be white people. And not even all white people. That's just like the empowered class of white people. There's some white folks they're poor today, and you go back 100, 200 years, their family was still poor. There's whites in Louisiana and Mississippi that have been poor since ever. But it's quite strange that he would suggest that blacks have somehow dominated American society. It's just the most bizarre commentary. And furthermore, when you talk about political correctness can have two different places that it lands. It can be within culture, which is irrelevant because there's no consequence, or it can be within government. We observe in the UK right now, if you say certain things, you might end up in jail for a social media post.
For sure.
That is a problem when it's within government. And those things are not the creation of blacks, because blacks don't have any power. Those are the creation of whites. And so, again, we're allowing him to skip by on these extremely flimsy arguments. And it's just so disappointing because you don't have any true intellectuals on this panel. Like, no one is picking these things up. I think Lamont has done a decent job at presenting himself. Mostly, I'm not very impressed with him, but I think he's done a good job here. And in terms of the four people on the panel, I think he's represented best.
Black people don't want to live around black people. I don't want to live around a bunch of black people. I move to neighborhoods where it's majority white because I know I'm safe. Now, this is uncomfortable reality that no one wants to say, so I'll say it for them.
I would have paused them right there if I was Piers. I would have said, you're Sudanese. Are there any Sudanese neighborhoods? Like, why wouldn't you move into a majority Sudanese neighborhood? Like, that's a conversation we should be having, right? Because you're Sudanese, you said blacks are bad. Fair enough. Like, me personally, I haven't lived in a black neighborhood since I moved out the ghetto. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah, same here.
So wait, hold on. So you're trying to make a point that he's proving your point on that point though, Marquett. You know what I mean? He's proving you don't live in the same neighborhood as other black people that you're saying he's wrong on. That's true. I don't think he can be speaking on this point if that's the case. So Myron's right then.
You heard me?
You proven
and I wouldn't move back in unless it's Silver Spring, Maryland, which is a very affluent black neighborhood. And if I had kids, that's certainly where I would want to be among other black people, because my kids are black and I don't want them to be discriminated against. But moreover, it would be completely appropriate to say, hey, you're Arab, you're Sudanese, would you move into a Sudanese neighborhood? And if so, where are they? And if you say there aren't any in America, then say, well, will you move back to your country? And the question is, why is no one asking this? Like, it's like weird because he's being treated as either an honorary black man or an honorary white man, and he is neither. It's like we're ignoring what he is. It's like the biggest elephant in the room, and it's just so bizarre to me. It's like people are like dealing with the stage name and the stage presence rather than the substance of the man.
Yeah, and I think that this part of the conversation it's less about race, because I understand what Myron is saying, where he's saying that I wouldn't move in a black neighborhood and stuff like that. The underlying thing of what he's saying is the values that people share. So it's like, okay, you wouldn't want to live in the area where people have degenerate values, where the woman is the one working, the man is the one at home.
Cooley's making great points. I think that's the point that Myron's making.
Like, it's this one comedian.
He sees it, that is the problem, that you can't stay where you growed up in, or where you growed up in, you can no longer go back there because people are wanting too much of you. Know what I mean? Just because you're that race, and this is what comes with that race.
And he made a funny joke. He was like, when it's not safe when you walk into a neighborhood and you see no women, and you see men that's like, hanging out on a porch and stuff, and you see men that's, riding their bike around during the daytime, that's probably not a safe area. But if you go to an area and there's women riding their bikes, taking the kids for a walk in a stroller and, kind of hanging out on a porch, getting some sun, well, then, that's a good neighborhood, because the men are somewhere working and the women are at home taking care of the children. But when you have situations where you walk into the hood, like, think about hoods. Normally it's guys that's hanging out during, on the street, and, they're not working. So I get what Myron is saying, but the underlying layer is we should be judging people on the content of their character, like, Martin Luther King said, rather than the color of their skin. And I think that he holds those views as well. But let's continue on. But before I do, Marquett, you got anything on that?
No, I agree with you. I think that was
Okay.
a very good explanation.
There you go, people. There you go, people. With that, man. People, man. Let me know what you think about this conversation. Do you think the conversation was good? Do you think it was productive? Do you think MyronGaines was making some valuable points? Do you think Marquett was making some valuable points? Do you think cooley from No Fugazi was making great points? Like, who do you think had a great points and there? Because I think both of them, all three of them, had good points and stuff in it. And I agreed in certain points with Marquett was saying, some points that MyronGaines was saying, some points that No Fugazi was saying, you know what I mean, cooley was saying. So people, let me know what you think about this conversation, and if you want me to react to a lot more of these conversations.